great karma that is going to accrue to him, along with all our blessings. Let him begin our session. He doesn't need any introduction. Welcome, Shikharji. Today's three letters you'll be taking up, 132, 3, and 32, 3, and 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vimalji, and good evening and greetings to everyone from Adyar. And before I begin, we are reading Mahatma letters, so I would also like to invoke our elder brothers or that Guru principle, which is teaching us all the time. Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Good evening once again, everyone. So, as Vimalji just said, we'll be taking up three letters, but let's see how much we can cover today. And whatever remains, we can take that up on the next Friday, that is 24th. And although the letters, out of these three letters, they are not very long, except 134. That is also like not very lengthy as some of the other letters, but these letters, especially 134th and a little bit of 133, gives us a very deep idea of practical theosophy. Like, how does these theosophical principles are applied in our daily life, and how does the occult law works in our life when a person is beginning to walk the path. Normally, what we take as problems or difficulties are very often the opportunities sent by this law of nature or law of occultism, we can say, to test our conviction, to test how much we have actually worked upon ourselves, how much we are willing to sacrifice for our principles, for truth. But the only way of dealing with these things and situations and coming out with a pearl of wisdom instead of a stone of prejudice is if we take these situations as learning opportunities rather than blaming the situations or people, individuals through whom these situations come to us. Only and only then these situations will help us grow. Otherwise, we will still remain in that cycle of law of karma and liking, disliking, making opinions, making prejudices against somebody or a group or some particular situations, and we'll keep going around in that cycle. So these three letters, in that sense, I find very, very important, because we will see when we later read them that how even the things that seem to us unjust or cruel are also carrying with them a hidden message for us only if we can receive that. So this letter number 132 that was received in October 1884, and this is basically a kind of clarification by H.P. Blavatsky. This is a letter not by Master, this is a letter by H.P. Blavatsky to AP Senate, and giving a kind of clarification, and so as that he does not make one more uh, opinion or prejudice against HPB, because that's what was happening at that time. So that's what H.P. Blavatsky explains in the first line itself: for fear that you should trace back to me a new treachery, permit me to say that I have never said to Mr. Hobbes Keldion, who was the first president of Germany, TS in Germany, and Frank Jaber, a member of Jaber family in Elberfeld, that the existence of 7 objective planets was an allegory. So basically, what she's trying to clarify, that somehow she might have to, AP Senate maybe having the idea that HPB might have told these people that what AP Senate had written in his book, Esoteric Buddhism, because before the book Secret Doctrine came out, AP Senate wrote the book Esoteric Buddhism. And in that, he has given a description about the chains, rounds, races, and planets, and their, planets from A to Z, 7 planets in a ring, and all those things, whatever he could understand from the Mahatma letters. So HPB, but since he could not have been given the full knowledge, rather I would say, or information from the masters, because that information what is given is limited by the eligibility of the person, as she quotes later that Master KH told you 100 times that you could not be told the whole doctrine, and that outside of the initiates, no one knew the mot final of this mystery of the chains, rounds, and races. So basically, that's why he could not understand it thoroughly, nor explain it. So what she really said was, in short, you gave the truth, whatever he could understand at that point of time from the Mahatma letters, and specifically, but there were some uh, apparent inconsistencies just because he did not have the key to 777. Now, the 777 in many places has been expressed as that from individualization to becoming an adept, the soul has to take 777 lives, births rather, to, from that is the whole journey. But again, all that can be someone's insight or speculation or understanding, but there may be further layers of information behind this 777, that there are 7 planets, and each planet has 7 rounds, has 7 races, 7 sub-races, and maybe a lot of uh, detailed occult information which at that time AP Senate could not understand due to his own personal limitation. So in his book, that's why in his book Esoteric Buddhism, there were some inconsistencies, but he wrote them whatever he understood at best. So he gave the truth, but by far not the whole truth, especially about the rounds and the rings. Rings here is meant, used to convey the meaning races, which was only at best allegorical. So that's what she said. So that thing might have been understood by others that HPB is spreading the word that APCNet in his book, has not given the truth or has written something wrong, or it's only allegorical, it's not clear. So that just to avoid any kind of misunderstanding between APCNet, even further misunderstanding, she wrote this letter and to clarify to Mr. APCNet. That is just the small letter. Then letter number 133 received also in November 1884, and this was again written by H.P. Blavatsky, and it was written from Algiers when HPB was returning from England to India, and she was returning by way of Egypt, and it was in Cairo that HPB learned the very damaging uh, information the Coulomb, about the Coulombs. I mean, the conspiracy, the facts that they did, they created in Adyar, that was in Cairo that she came to know. But this letter also gives us a very interesting facts about what all situations she witnessed during all these times. And what happened was that she's writing the letter, and they were in the boat, I mean the ship. So she's explaining how bad the condition was, and they were, because when the ship is rolling and pitching, so she called it that we were hopelessly tossed about and pitched in our clan washed tub. And washed tub means, and the whole ship was like going, rolling and pitching in the sea. And Joel Cool, she says, put in an appearance and asked in his master's name, that he materialized there and asked her if he, if, I mean, if she could send APCNet a chit, a paper, a note. And she agreed. Then Joel Cool asked to prepare some paper, which at that time she did not have. And then he said, any paper will do, any piece of paper will do. So since Mrs. Holloway was not with her at that time, so she came out of her cabin and looking for other passengers to ask about a piece of paper. And what she thought, I wish those passengers who quarrel with us every day about the possibility of phenomena could see what was taking place in my cabin on the foot of my berth. Of course, it cannot be done publicly, but I mean, later when she was receiving the letter, so she was thinking that people who are arguing and quarreling, and they are taking so much time to explain about this phenomena, could see this, and what was happening there, how Joel Cool's DK's hand, as real as life, was impressing the letter at his master's dictation, which came out in relief between the wall and my legs. So a hand, I mean, that's what she's saying, that hand materialized as real as life, and it was impressing the letter at his master. So master was dictating Joel Cool, and Joel Cool was impressing it on the letter, as we have studied that masters use their disciples to uh, write these letters. And between her legs and the wall, it came out as a relief. I mean, Joel Cool told HPB to read the letter, but she said, I am no wiser for it. And she understood very well. Now we are coming to that point. she said that she understood very well that it was all probation and all for the best. But it is devilish hard for me to understand why it should all be performed over my long suffering back. So that is the attitude of a person who is a disciple. She is saying that she was very well understood. She very well understood that it has something to do with probation. And even when she was told to read the letter, but still she said, uh, maybe not, because later when we see that it was meant for uh, AP Sinnett and Mrs. Holloway. And but what she was finding it very difficult to accept that why she has been in the middle of all this when it is the probation of Mrs. Holloway. She is in correspondence, I mean, Mrs. Holloway, just a minute. She is in correspondence with Myers and the Jebbards and many others. That is talking about Mrs. Holloway. And you will see what splatters, I mean, what the consequence will happen. And she is agreeing to the fact that, and she's knows the fact that I will receive as an effect of the causes produced by that probation business. I wish I had never seen the woman. So, so basically, if we see, it is not just the test or a probation of one person. When we are walking on this path, whether probation is a very different matter, even small daily events of our life, every moment, everyone is kind of being tested in a smaller or larger way. It's not that only one person who is undergoing test or probation is being tested. Everybody who is on that path and who has willingly accepted to walk the path, either in relation to that person or not, will get some situation or the other, which will be a test for each and everyone. And why she's HPB saying that she wished that she had never seen Mrs. Holloway, because she said she had never dreamt of such treachery, betrayal, and deceit, because she said when she was a chela on probation, she also did her own mistakes. But she even go to say to this extent that she would even thought, she would even think of murdering someone physically rather than murdering her friends morally, as Mrs. Holloway has done. So that's what she is saying, that physical hurt, if by, I mean, is it happens, it it brings its own karma. But betraying someone, or physically, mentally, emotionally, or hurting someone like that, is even much worse. So that's what she's saying. And she says that had not Master brought about the explanation, uh, I would have gone away leaving a nice memory of myself and Mrs. Sinnett's and your hearts. So basically, Master have given us the explanation so as, to kind of resolve the things. We have on board one Mrs. Burton of Shimla. She left it the day before I came and has been always anxious since to meet me. She wants to join us and is a charming little woman. So basically what she's saying, there are many Anglo-Indians who want to join the society, and they are very kindly disposed and they think good of the society. But such people like Mrs. Holloway, they spread a kind of bad word, negativity, and backbiting about the individuals or the society, which creates a very difficult situation. And then she says how the steamer or the boat is like a rolling washtub, and the person who is in charge of taking care is not a very good person. We are all starving and living upon our own tea and biscuits. I mean, many times I think many of us may think that the life as we are leading is become we want our life to become more and more comfortable, whether we go anywhere, even if we go to an ashram or somewhere retreat. The first thing is, of course, what we want is the physical comfort, and then we look for, the house, the retreat, and all those things. How are the other arrangements? But uh, when we look at the people like HPB, Colonel Olcott, in what conditions they travel with so much of discomfort, inconvenience, and still they carried the flame of theosophy and spirituality. That is really something very, very remarkable. And then she tells Epicynet to write a word, I mean, write a note or letter, what is the Adyar, what is happening in Adyars will be written by all courts, and to send to Port Said, that is in Egypt. So they will keep the post while they are planning to stay for a 15 days fortnight. And then he said, can't write for the rolling. When the ship rolls, it's very difficult to write. And then she ends the letter there. So this was kind of a cover letter for the next one, which is written by the master. And this letter basically concerns Mrs. Holloway, as we were just talking now, and deals with the probation, about which HPB said so many things in her covering letter, which we just read. Now, AP Senate had sent on to the Mahatma a letter which Mrs. Holloway had written and sent through Mohini. And it must have been rather heavy with self-conceit. Self-conceit, Attavada, yani Atmavad, or sense of separateness or strong sense of personality. And this letter is entirely private except for Mohini and Francesca Arundale. So basically, AP Senate has written a letter, but the master is not replying to that letter. He says, good friend, this is not an answer to your last letter. The last letter to my address sent by you through Mohini was never written by yourself. Verily, it was penned by one at that time entirely under the influence of a creature of Attavada. Attavada, in Buddhism, we have this principle of self. I mean, in this case, we can say the sin of self. That is sense of separateness, as we study in theosophy, uh, thinking only about oneself, who in the universe, as in the mirror, sees her fond face shown, and only hers, whose every word he then implicitly trusted. So this letter through Mohini was given to AP Senate for the master. So master is saying it was never written by you, but by someone who is extremely selfish and whose every word Mohini implicitly trusted. And why he trusted? Because Mohini Mohan Chatterjee was also a chela. Because there came no half expected interference, no word of warning from our quarters. So, because Mohini also must have thought that since the master is not interfering, or they are not telling me or giving me any sign not to do this or whether to do or not to do, so he went completely trusted her words completely. So this is the kind of a justification that master is giving, and thus he is not responding to that letter, because that letter in that sense has no meaning, because it was completely written by such a person. But rather they are now opening up a new page, and before that he says, how long shall the mysteries of chelaship overpower and lead astray from the path of truth the wise and perspicacious, as much as the foolish and the credulous. Now, this is a very important statement, in the sense that suppose if anybody asks us today, all of us who are here, who wants to be the chela of the masters or disciple of the masters, or who want to be put on probation, I think most of us will say yes immediately. But in several letters of from the masters, they have repeatedly cautioned that it is not something, it is not a decision to be taken in a haste, because until and unless we carefully examine our own capacity, our own uh, determination, commitment, and dedication, and until unless we have removed to a lot extent from ourselves selfishness, because why? Again, as per the occult law, that the moment somebody wishes it or is put on probation, a lot of occult forces start working on the individual. And what those occult forces do is that they begin to strengthen not only the positive aspect of the person, the strengths, but also all the seeds that were of negativity or the weakness are there, they also start becoming stronger and stronger. And then basically it we can think of it as like fast forwarding, like what could have happened in like several lives, it's begins to happen in just few years of this birth. So everything becomes very strong. So if suppose a person was very generous, so he will become even more generous. And along with that generosity, if the person had irritation, little irritation or irritating attitude or behavior, that irritation will become hundredfold or thousandfold also. So if on that point, that person, the individual is not committed fully, which in the next few statements the master will tell us, if certain those conditions are not met and the person is not already ready for them, the person is likely to go astray, as what he's saying, that how long shall the mysteries of chelaship overpower and lead astray from the path of truth. And that's when what happens is the person goes in a different direction, of course, will come again back to the path after a couple of births, lives. But when we take a decision without checking our capacities, this is what happens. And here, just to give an idea of, since we are talking about Laura Holloway, that who was she and why are we talking, and why Masters has written about him and why she was quite a prominent person at that time. She was an American widow. She was a natural clairvoyant who came to London about the time of London Lodge election controversy. And Master KH had clearly been aware of her existence for some time. And also because the Mahatmas had been searching for someone to either aid or replace HPB as the channel for their communications. Because as we all know that HPB's body, the physical conditions was getting worse and worse every day. And so either to help her or to replace her for the communications. So it was during her stay in London, much of the time she stayed in the home of Francesca Arundel and her mother. And that's where Mrs. Holloway and Mohini Mohan Chatterjee wrote the book, Man, Fragments of Forgotten History. It was published first in 1885 with with some corrections in the second edition in 1887, about which the SPB said, even Master said, that it was excellent book in part, but it was marred by Mrs. Holloway's alleged inspiration and dictation by student, a character created by her imagination. Now, we have, during the series of Mahatma letters, we have seen several such characters. I mean, several such individuals who had quite, who were very talented, brilliant, psychic, clairvoyant, but also they had some uh, another aspect in their behavior which led them to sometimes believe their imagination to be their intuition or insights. Like we had Mr. Fern or someone who had the guide whom he used to call Imperator, and thought that that Imperator is also a master and he is being guided from that uh, entity, and and then their own imagination. So similarly, Master is saying that the book is good in part, but it is defective also to in many parts, because Mrs. Holloway thought that alleged inspiration and dictation, what she was writing, is by student, which a character she created by her imagination, and thought that that student is her guiding entity. And then Mrs. Holloway left soon after the publication of this book and returned to US. Later, she married Colonel Langford. She did write some theosophical journals for some journals, and she used to sign her initial as LCL or LCH, Laura Holloway or Laura Langford. And later, she resigned from the society after a few years, but remained friends with many members, particularly with Colonel Olcott's sister, Mrs. Bell Mitchell. So, just to give a brief idea about who was Mrs. Laura Holloway and why it happens, that why probation does this to individuals, as I was just saying, that Master writes that how few of the many pilgrims who have to start without the chart or compass on that shoreless ocean of occultism reach the wished for land. What I was just sharing, that because the path is full of, as it's said, full of thorns, and thorns not of any external creation. It depends on the individual's internal state of being. It can be clear, it can not be clear, depending how much mental, psychic garbage we are carrying with us. That's why how few of the many pilgrims actually reached that. And this is a very strong sentence from the Master when he says, believe me that nothing short of full confidence in us, in our good motives, if not in our wisdom, in our foresight, if not omniscience, which is not to be found on this earth, can help one to cross over from one's land of dream and fiction to our truth land, the region of stern reality and fact. Now, this one statement actually, if we see, can give us an idea why in the field of spirituality, wherever we go, so much importance has been given to a guru. Because, again, although we study in theosophy that the ultimate guru is, the guru can only be two, word guru is used in two references, either an adept who is able to see past, present, future, and know where the person is at the stage of evolution and guide accordingly, but only to a certain extent, because ultimately one's guru is one's own higher self. So this is why, because yes, everybody at some point of time needs a guide, but not necessarily that guide can be somebody in a physical body in front whom we can meet in person on a daily basis. It can be the teachings, or it can be a book, or it can be guidance through individuals or adepts, uh, disembodied adepts also. So, without which it is being told that nothing short of full confidence in us. In some of the letters, if we read, Mahatma has also said, and it is that doubt is good. I mean, I'm just sharing the essence as far as I remember. The doubt is good. It is an armor actually, which helps us to, protect us basically from a lot of frauds and a lot of things that are being done in the name of spirituality. But to a certain extent, there comes a point when the same doubt becomes an obstacle. As in Masters on the Path or at the feet of the Master, we study that one of the six in the good conduct is Shraddha, also faith. Faith in the Guru, the Master, the God, faith in oneself. So, and that is why it is easier to become a member of TS. But when somebody wants to walk a deeper path of spirituality, then there are certain things that are required more from the person, and without which, what will happen? Master says, otherwise the ocean will prove shoreless indeed. No, of course, Bhavasagar, what it is called in Hindi, we hear the word Bhavasagar. Say, हम लोग कहते हैं ना कि भव सागर से पार लगाने के लिए, to take us to the another shore. So its waves will carry one no longer on waters of hope, but will turn every ripple into doubt and suspicion. And if you, I think we all remember that this is also one of the obstacles that we study in one of the initiations. And right now we are just reading them as words, the doubt and suspicion, but we all have those seeds inside from the earlier evolution. So what happens is all these, there comes a stage that these doubts and suspicions become so strong that even, some point of time, even like, see, even at certain time, AP Sinnett also, he became away from, left the society of Mrs. Holloway, and there have been several people who come like this, who begin, but at some point of time, the doubt happens. What if nothing of this is true? Doubt not only about the masters, but what if law of karma does not exist? What if there is whatever we are studying, life after death, nothing exists, X, Y, Z. And so every ripple, with every thought, it becomes doubt and suspicion. And bitter shall they prove to him who starts on that dismal tossing sea of the unknown with a prejudiced mind. And that is why when J. Krishnamurti, it is said that J. Krishnamurti's teachings are different than what Theosophy teaches, but what is actually is doing is, because even when we are looking for truth, we have a conditioning of the truth, or we have an idea of the truth. So if we have an idea of the truth, then we are not looking for the truth. So that is why his whole approach is to get rid of any prejudices, any conditionings of the mind, because then and then only we will be able to see anything as it is. Otherwise, one or the other prejudice of our own. See, our own desires, our own conditionings become the source of our own exploitation. I have some prejudice, okay, that people of this place are very good. And maybe I go there and trust, and then I get somebody cheats me. And I'm not careful, and somebody cheats me. Or I desire something, so then somebody gives me that and then asks a favor from me. So my own prejudices, my own conditionings, my own ambitions, desires become the source of my exploitation. So the person who does not have any prejudice in mind or conditioning in mind, which is very, of course, it takes a lot of work, effort to decondition, only that person can actually perceive the truth. But he's saying, nevertheless, don't feel too much perplexed, because the hour of trial is half over. The probation is almost half over. And what is the important point? To learn to pass it, Master is saying that try rather to understand the whys and what force of the situation, to study more seriously the laws that govern our occult world. What we often do in our daily life is we get distracted by who did this, instead of that. And why, who did this? Because the whole infrastructure is about to pinpoint either the blame or the recognition to somebody, or a reward. So something good happened, okay, we give the person medal or something. Something bad happened, we punish the person. But instead of doing that, if we begin to see the situations, events, incidents as whys and what force, why am I here? Why this thing happened? What is the importance of this small incidents in the big line of events? And when we begin to see daily life also like that, then we begin to study more seriously the laws of the occult world. And then Master says, which is now very important, he says, I grant you, those laws do seem very often unjust, even at times cruel. If we see the news, the kind of crimes, the kind of things that happen and are reported, it is really, really seems, looks, how can something like that happen in nature? A human doing to another human. But this is due to the fact that they were never meant either for immediate redress of wrongs or the direct help of those who offer at random their allegiance to the legislators. So Master makes it very clear that because they were never meant for immediate redress of wrongs, like immediately somebody does something and the law of karma, immediately redress it, and or the direct help of those who offer at random. Like in this life, we see somebody is doing good, but still he or she has to suffer a lot because although there is no direct reason for that suffering, but and the person should get help directly right now, but it was never meant for those that because otherwise how can a person develop courageous endurance? How can a person develop understanding, patience, law of retribution? And again, very important thing the master says, with which we'll end today's session, is still the seemingly real, the evanescent and quick passing evils they bring about are as necessary to the growth, progress, and final establishment of your small theosophical society as those cataclysms in nature, which often decimate whole populations, are necessary to mankind. So, if we look at this, nothing that is happening, no matter whatever, whether it is tsunami, earthquake, fires that are going in Los Angeles right now, wars going on somewhere, everything and every event, big or small, good or bad, is happening and it's somehow aiding in divine plan. Somebody is learning from that, somebody's karma is being fructified, somebody is making new karma, but all of that is necessary for the growth, progress, and final establishment. Just like as theosophical society, same like in cataclysm in nature, a lot of people are hurt in that, but we'll see in the next session when we take next Friday that everything, there is a reason behind that. And that's why when we see to these saints or seers who are in meditation, and for them all is well, because everything is happening as per the law that is based on justice and love and compassion. So nothing can go wrong in that. And with that, I will stop now, I think maybe for Hindi translation.
I don't see Meenakshi ji today, so I think we're not having an Hindi translation. Is that right, Pradeep ji?
I think Suswaji will do whatever written
Okay.
translated by. Suswaji, are you?
Yes, Sushma ji, you can carry on if you're ready with Hindi translation. Sushma ji says she couldn't unmute herself. हाँ, ठीक है.
नमस्कार, धन्यवाद
हाँ.
शिखर जी. हाँ, मैं मीनाक्षी जी द्वारा प्रेषित लेटर नंबर 132, 133 और 134 का हिंदी अनुवाद प्रस्तुत कर रही हूँ. यह पत्र एचपीबी ने मिस्टर एपी सेनेट को अक्टूबर 1884 में लंदन से लिखा था. वह लिखती हैं, माय डियर एपी सेनेट, और वो इस पत्र में कुछ स्पष्टीकरण देती हैं. वह कहती हैं कि मैं इस डर से कि आप मुझ पर एक और नया विश्वासघात का आरोप लगाएं, मुझे यह कहने की अनुमति दें कि मैंने खुब्बी शेल्डन और फ्रैंक जेबर्ड से यह कभी नहीं कहा कि हमारे 7 ऑब्जेक्टिव प्लैनेट्स यानी वस्तुनिष्ठ ग्रह का अस्तित्व रूपात्मक था। मैंने जो कहा वह यह था कि सेप्टनरी चेन यानी 7 चेन की वस्तुनिष्ठता और वास्तविकता से 7 राउंड की सही समझ से कोई लेना देना नहीं था, तथा दीक्षितों के सिवाय कोई भी इस रहस्य को पूर्णतः नहीं जानता था। किंतु आप इसे पूरी तरह समझ नहीं पाए, न ही इसे पूरी तरह समझा पाए, क्योंकि महात्मा केएच ने आपको सैकड़ों बार बताया कि आपको संपूर्ण सिद्धांत नहीं बताए जा सकते। यह आप जानते थे कि ह्यूम ने उनसे अनेकों सवाल पूछे थे और तब तक क्रॉस एग्जामिन यानी प्रति परीक्षण करते रहे जब तक उनके बाल सफेद नहीं हो गए, यानी कि जब तक वो थक नहीं गए। मास्टर कहते हैं कि आपके पास 777 की समझदारी की कोई कुंजी नहीं थी और न ही इसे आपको दी जा सकती थी। इसीलिए सैकड़ों विसंगतियां उत्पन्न हुई। संक्षेप में कहें तो आपने सच्चाई बताई, लेकिन राउंड्स और रिंग्स यहाँ रूट रेसेस के लिए इस्तेमाल हुआ है, जो रूपात्मक कथन था उसके बारे में पूर्ण सच्चाई नहीं बताई। आपकी एचपीबी। अब ये लेटर नंबर 133 है, जो एचपीबी एपी सेनेट वो नवंबर 9 1884 में लिखती हैं। वह कहती हैं, डियर मिस्टर सेनेट, मैं अपने वचन की पक्की हूं। कल रात जब हम अपने क्लैन नामक जहाज में बुरी तरह से हिलोरे खा रहे थे, तो उसी समय ज्वालकुल अवतरित हुए और अपने मास्टर की ओर से मुझसे पूछा कि क्या मैं आपको यानी एपी सेनेट को एक चिट्ठी भेज सकती हूँ। एचपीबी कहती हैं, मैं इसके लिए राजी हुई। उन्होंने फिर मुझसे कुछ कागज का इंतजाम करने को कहा, जो मेरे पास नहीं था। फिर उन्होंने कहा कि कोई भी कागज चलेगा। कागज देने के लिए मेरे पास मिसेस हॉलोवे नहीं थी, इसलिए मैंने एक यात्री से मांग की। काश वे यात्री जो हर दिन हमारे साथ चमत्कारिक घटना की संभावनाओं को लेकर झगड़ते हैं, वे देख पाते कि मेरे केबिन में मेरे बर्थ के नीचे क्या हो रहा है। कैसे डीके के हाथ, जो साक्षात सजीव रूप में थे, और वो मेरे पैर और दीवार के बीच में था, वो अपने मास्टर के डिक्टेशन पर पत्र लिख रहे थे। उन्होंने मुझसे पत्र पढ़ने के लिए कहा, लेकिन मैं इसके योग्य नहीं हूं। मैं अच्छी तरह से समझती हूँ कि यह सब प्रोबेशन को लेकर था और अच्छे के लिए था, लेकिन मेरे लिए समझना बहुत मुश्किल है कि तो ये सब मेरे साथ क्यों किया जा रहा है, जबकि मैं लंबे समय से पीड़ित और बीमार हूं। एचपीबी लिखती हैं कि मिसेस हॉलोवे, मायर्स और जेबहर्ड और कई अन्य लोगों के साथ पत्राचार चल रहा है। वो कहती हैं, मिस्टर सेनेट, आप देखेंगे कि उस प्रोबेशन कार्य द्वारा उत्पन्न कारणों के प्रभाव के रूप में मुझे क्या क्या झेलना होगा। काश मैंने उस महिला को कभी नहीं देखा होता। ऐसा विश्वासघात, ऐसा धोखा कि मैंने कभी उसकी कल्पना भी नहीं की थी। एचपीजी लिखती हैं, मैं भी चेला थी और कई बार मैंने भी मित्रों के संबंध में निरर्थक बातें की। ऐसा करना अपने मित्रों की नैतिक रूप से हत्या करना है, जैसा कि उसने भी किया है। उसे मैं किसी मनुष्य की शारीरिक रूप से हत्या करना जैसा ही मानती हूँ। अगर मास्टर ने स्पष्टीकरण नहीं दिया होता तो मैं मिसेस सेनेट और आपके दिलों में अपनी अच्छी याद छोड़कर जाती। हमारे साथ शिमला की मिसेस बर्टन भी हैं। मेरे आने से एक दिन पहले वे चली गई और तब से वो मुझसे मिलने के लिए हमेशा उत्सुक और आतुर रहती है। वे हमारे साथ आना चाहती हैं और वे एक बहुत ही अच्छी महिला है। हमारे साथ कई एंग्लो इंडियंस भी हैं और सभी भले स्वभाव के हैं। वे फिर कहती हैं कि हमारा जहाज बहुत हिलने डुलने वाला जहाज है और हमारे खाद्य प्रबंधक भी कुछ अच्छे नहीं हैं। हम सभी भूखे हैं और अपने ही चाय और बिस्किट पे जी रहे हैं। कोर्ट सेट को यह अवश्य संदेश दें, हम शायद 2 सप्ताह तक इजिप्ट में रहेंगे। यह सब ऑलकॉट के पत्रों और रड्यार के समाचारों पर निर्भर करता है। जहाज हिलने के कारण मैं लिख नहीं सकती। सभी को मेरा स्नेह। योर्स एवर ट्रूली HPB। ये पत्र नंबर 133 था। अब 134 का कुछ अंश मैं प्रस्तुत कर रही हूँ। यह पत्र नवंबर 1884 में लिखा गया। मास्टर KH ने AP सेनेट को लिखा। लिखते हैं, गुड फ्रेंड, यह पत्र आपके पिछले पत्र के उत्तर में नहीं है। मोहिनी के माध्यम से आपने जो पत्र मुझे भेजा था वह आपके द्वारा नहीं लिखा गया था। वास्तव में यह उस समय एक ऐसे व्यक्ति द्वारा लिखा गया था जो पूर्णतः अत्ववाद के प्रभाव में था। यानी वह व्यक्ति जो संसार में दर्पण की तरह केवल अपना ही मनभावन चेहरा देखना चाहती है। हाँ, केवल अपना ही, जिसके हर शब्द पर पूर्णतः विश्वास करता था। शायद इसीलिए कि अधूरी उम्मीदों से हमने कोई हस्तक्षेप नहीं किया, कोई चेतावनी नहीं दी, इसलिए पत्र का जवाब नहीं दिया, क्योंकि ऐसे में हम एक नया अध्याय शुरू करते। आगे मास्टर विस्मय से कहते हैं कि चेलाशिप यानी साधना मार्ग के रहस्य कब तक प्रज्ञावान और कुशाग्र बुद्धि और साथ ही अज्ञानी और भोले भाले लोगों पर हावी होकर उन्हें सत्य के मार्ग से भटकाएंगे। वास्तव में गूढ़ विद्या के तटहीन महासागर में चार्ट और कंपास रूपी मार्गदर्शन के बिना अपनी यात्रा यदि कोई शुरू करता है तो साधकों में से कितने अपनी मंजिल तक पहुंच सकते हैं। मास्टर लिखते हैं, मेरे निष्ठावान मित्र, मुझ पर विश्वास करें। हमारे प्रज्ञान पर न सही, लेकिन हमारे ऊपर और हमारे नेक इरादों पर पूर्ण विश्वास करें। हमारी सर्वज्ञता पर न सही, जो इस भौतिक जगत में नहीं पाई जाती, लेकिन हमारी दूरदर्शिता पर विश्वास करें, जिसमें साधक अपने स्वयं स्वप्नमयी और कल्पना जगत को पार करके हमारी सत्य भूमि पर कठोर सत्यता और वास्तविकता के क्षेत्र में आने के लिए मददगार होगा। मास्टर कहते हैं, नहीं तो यह महासागर तटहीन साबित होगा। उसकी लहरें किसी को आशा के जल पर नहीं ले जाएंगी, परंतु हर तरंग को शंका और संदेह में परावर्तित करेंगी। और पूर्वाग्रह एवं दूषित मन से यदि कोई इस घोर लहराते अज्ञात महासागर में अपनी यात्रा की शुरुआत करेगा तो वह उसके लिए पीड़ादायक साबित होगी। मास्टर कहते हैं, लेकिन आप घबराएं नहीं। आपकी परीक्षा की कसौटी के आधे पल पूर्ण हो गए हैं। यह परिस्थिति क्यों और किस कारण से है, इसे समझने की कोशिश करें। हमारे गूढ़ जगत यानी ऑकल्ट वर्ल्ड को नियंत्रित करने वाले नियमों का गंभीरता से चिंतन करें। आगे मास्टर्स कहते हैं कि मैं मानता हूं कि वे नियम बहुत बार अन्यायपूर्ण और कठोर भी लगते हैं, लेकिन इसके पीछे की सच्चाई यह है कि कभी भी दोषों के तत्काल निवारण के लिए ये नियम नहीं थे, या जो बिना सोचे समझे स्वयं को उन कानूनों के निर्माता के प्रति अपनी निष्ठा अर्पित करते हैं, उनकी प्रत्यक्ष मदद के लिए भी नहीं थे। फिर भी उस कारण निर्माण होने वाली क्षणिक अल्प अवधि वाली बुराइयां जो खरी प्रतीत होती हैं, सही प्रतीत होती हैं, वो आपके छोटे से TS यानी थियोसॉफिकल सोसाइटी के प्रगति और वृद्धि और स्थिरता के लिए आवश्यक है। मास्टर कहते हैं, जैसे प्रकृति में कुछ प्रलय जो अक्सर पूरी आबादी को नष्ट कर देते हैं, वे मानव जाति के लिए आवश्यक होते हैं। सारी दुनिया जानती है कि एक भूकंप लाभदायक हो सकता है। एक ज्वार की लहर कुछ लोगों के लिए नुकसान का कारण बनती है, पर अनेकों का भला करती है। ऐसा देखा गया है कि जो योग्यतम थे वही प्रत्येक पुरानी रेस के विनाश होने तक बने रहते हैं, और नई रेस में घुल मिलकर वह फिर जो है वह उसमें शामिल कर लिए जाते हैं। तो आप ये समझें और अपने को सूचित करें कि जो कुछ भी लंदन लॉज में हुआ है उसके खेद का कोई कारण नहीं है। धन्यवाद।
Thank you so much, Sushma ji. So we'll open up for questions and answers and any other comments. So I'd just like to add a little bit from what I understand through these three letters. So at this point, what I see is in 18 months' time, Laura Holloway, from being nobody in the TS, now the TS is 9 years old, has suddenly risen meteorically. I mean, after being inspired by Sinnett's esoteric Buddhism and occult world, reading that and coming from America to Britain, and then later to I think to Europe also, and I don't know. But that what has then happened is see her ambition and the way she pushed herself then to she says that the master says that she had aimed to become the chela and everything. But what occurs to me here is that the masters can even smell a problem. So when Atavad is another word for Atmavad, means the person who is very self-centered or selfish, you can that type of. They are able to even smell an attitude of a person. So as I understand it, their aim to develop Holloway was to substitute HPB. And I am thinking it's not just for communication, it's also for writing the secret doctrine. Remember, the secret doctrine HPB has already started writing it. And it's very, very hard that imagine that big a book being written by someone who's so sick. So I'm assuming that Holloway was also, maybe there was some hope that she could replace there. But now with that letter which she had written for Synod, putting her own personality in that letter, plus we will see further, Shikharji will tell in the further part of the letter that even the book, the fragments of, no, what is the book? 5 years of Theosophy, I think.
Fragments of Forgotten History.
So she puts lots of her own ideas into it, and now the masters are worried about correcting that. So now they realize that this person's ego, the lower self, which they mention it, is too strong, too powerful to be useful to us. Not just has she failed as a chela, probably in the probation period, she's also failed for their purpose also. So this is what I wanted to add. Thank you so much.
Shikhar sir.
Yes, we open up.
This is Lakshmi from Bangalore.
Hello.
So hello sir, good evening. So in the beginning, the master was telling when you become chela or want to become a chela or get deep into the occultism, everything increases many-fold, whether it is good or bad, which are in the form of seeds. How to take it when it comes as bad, when you have an image of good or we living good a life in this Janma, and the bad comes as a storm from nowhere. How to take it?
How to take it? I think, sir, I think at the feet of the master and all this literature that we have been given, I think those are the light, I mean, what you say, lighthouses or beacons which guide us what to do. But one thing that I get from all this is to not be in any haste or to not be in any hurry to ask for something which you never know may be given. Because as long as, that's why if you see, sir, in all the theosophical literature, everywhere it is mentioned to clear our lower tendencies first. Not to desire of any siddhis or any powers, not even to desire becoming a chela. Because the moment we have a desire or aspiration, we put in movement the forces, and if it's like desiring for something too big for which we are not ready to be taken to task. So the first step is actually, that is why it is said that as much as possible to clean and clear our personality from any kind of selfishness as much as possible, and try to do everything from a selfless point of view. I know it is difficult, if not selfless, at least to do something, to do things which bring goodness to more and more people. Okay, not just me, not just my family, to my neighbors, to environment, to animals, plants. I mean, even to that extent. So that is the only way. Because from that we get the spiritual power to face such situations. Whatever karma that we have, whatever power, spiritual power we have collected from our any selfless acts, that helps us to deal with the difficult times that we get in life. And that is why all these spiritual practices, meditation, study, are meant for the times that when we get such situations, we should be able, like for example, we may think that if we were in the time of Krishna, or if we were in the time of Jesus, we would have, identified them as avatars. But are we really sure about that? A lot, I mean, a very much possibility that if we were in that, maybe most likely we were in that lifetime, and we would also be thinking like others, prejudiced and conditioned, and we will also be in the same crowd like others. What if we think if we were in the time of HPB, so many people were throwing, negative intentions on her. Imagine if that happens to someone right now, what approach we would be taking to that person. So those kind of things, when we begin to think, to see things from an open mind, that it's not just what is visible, but a lot of occult forces are working behind. I think that deep approach itself helps us a lot in dealing with that. And I think ultimately that's what the thing is, doing good. We keep doing good no matter what comes, and ultimately that power of goodness overtakes over everything else.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Hindeji, would you like to add something?
No, Shikhar has explained very nicely. And the question was asked how to get through that trap of whatever is in our subconscious mind comes to the surface when we treat the path. And therefore, either you can become a god or a pitiful sinner. That is the statement of Krishnamurti. So the same thing masters have told in this also for the disciples. And the only thing that we are expecting, we are expecting and not having the attitude to accept everything. And when there is a gap between our expectation and reality, more the gap, more the stress. So this is how the law works. And when we understand this law, then we stop expecting anything. Even as Shikhar pointed out, even today there are masters. They are in us. They are traveling within us. But we don't see them because we are not developed to that extent. So that is what one has to remember. These Mahatma letters are written long back. And we have now in the digital world, we know whatever we talk, whatever we think, whatever we feel, that is all reserved in the clouds. As Shikhar must explain it very well, how it is preserved. We call it as the Akashic record. So all that affects each other. Once we understand this, we become calm and quiet, because the life is a song and our whole body is a song bowl within which we understand the peace That is what Buddha also taught us. So once we remember this, I think these letters are very, very inspiring. Shikhar has explained very, very deeply, no doubt at all. Thank you very much, Shikhar. And Vimalji, Sushmaji explained very well, even in Hindi. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else would like to speak?
Bimalji will close because
Oh,
cloud timing is over now.
all right, sir. Asatoma Satkame, Tamasoma Jyotirgam, Mrityorma Amshtamgam. Om Shanti Shanti. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Namaste, sabko. Have a great week ahead.